Okay, I'm here. This is fine. I am Brianna Quick. This is LA year one. I graduated fashion school. I kind of was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with that because the fashion world was not what I wanted it to be. And I realized slowly that I enjoy storytelling. I like styling. I like finding people and figuring out what they want to wear. So I applied to UCLA Film School, got in. I was really nervous. I really hadn't done anything in film, but I knew that I enjoy movies and surprised they need clothing in them. So that's kind of where I wound up putting those two things together. So coming down, I really didn't know what to expect. I had lived in the same town my entire life, which was pretty small, about 40,000 people. Think about Hollywood and the movies, and it's like magical, and you grow up watching these things, and they were such a large part of my childhood that I just kind of expected something very, very magical. And getting in here, you realize that it's like, yes, movies are magic, but also like there's nitty gritty. You have to live your life in LA. You have to work really hard for these things, and not knowing anything about it, it was a steep learning curve. I had expectations of going into college and going through the 2 years of the program and being really like getting out in the world and having a job. And so it was kind of a shock that first year when my dad passed away. And I had to go home for a few months. I took a brief break from school and went home and really had to think about like what I wanted to do, because family's always been very important to me, but I'm also building this career and working towards this goal that my dad was very excited that I had gotten into the program and was working towards this dream. That was a different outcome than I thought was gonna be my year one. But something really surprising happened with it, was that I had built these relationships with these people in my class and some professionals at the school, and I really considered not going back for a long time. And I made an appointment with my one of my professors when I came down, somewhere in the middle of my quarter off. And it was a realization at that time that like, yes, this is a new community, and yes, it's totally different, and yes, these are very young relationships, but there was a massive amount of support from the people that I knew here. And I truly think because we're all artists and because we all have a different perspective on the world, but are also very accepting of other perspectives. We've grown up watching so many different perspectives in film, that we're generally highly empathetic. And it was because I had that support from my community in filmmaking that I came back. And so there's been some terrible realizations in terms of like what my expectations were for that year one, having something very tragic happen, but it also exceeded my expectations. Slowly building a community of support and from artists and other filmmakers. The people that you meet in your first year are really the people that you're gonna start coming up with over the first couple years, and the things that you work on when you're really fresh in the industry and you're probably not making a lot of money, if any money, on the project, and it's just about collaborating and making friends and seeing who you vibe with creatively and who you don't. But you will make friends and you will create a community, whether you realize it or not, because I really think working so hard and so often, I didn't realize I was building that. Those are the people that will continually support you. I found that no matter how much time passes between myself and the people that I met in my first few years, those are the people that constantly send me as a recommendation, constantly are checking in, are the people that when we finally do work together again, or when we finally get to see each other again, it's like no time really has passed. And it's also really, really inspiring to see people who you come into and are all kind of at the same level as everyone builds. And that is what I think inspires me. When I'm around people who are also excited and also thriving and trying to build themselves up, it inspires me to do the same thing. It inspires me to be better and work harder and be more creative and allow myself to also fail, because I know that they will be there to support as well. So the first jobs that I had, like right out of film school, honestly, a lot of them were still involved with UCLA, because you really, once you're a part of UCLA, whether you've gone there or not, if you work on a UCLA project and you are, you know, a dedicated worker and all that stuff, like you're part of the ship, like always part of the ship. So that was a lot of my first year projects. A few of the people that I knew were blessed and were able to get, you know, money to have make a feature. And so even though I wasn't paid very much, it's usually some sort of a stipend as opposed to a day rate or whatever, we went out and we made these things. And one of my favorite movies I've ever made, one of my favorite features, was a Western in Tucson that a bunch of us from UCLA just went out. We rented a house. I got a small stipend, but we had, you know, hellish days and 110-degree weather, because we shot in August, because everything in Tucson shuts down in August because it's so hot. It's also monsoon season. So we have to go between extremely hot to humid to like electrical, like storm monsoons sweeping across the desert landscape. And it was awful. Like, if you look at the days themselves, it was awful. But because of the people that I was with, and we're all, again, same level, we'd been friends. Some of us had gone through UCLA together. Some of us were still there. Some of us had just gotten out. It made that movie one of my favorites I've ever been on. We would go back to the house after all those hard days and have a whiskey or beer, and I call it trauma bonding, where we talk about how awful our day was. But it made us so much closer, and all of those people I'm still very close with and friends with, and we work with on a regular basis as we've been building up our careers. So that's a thing, you know. There's also been the ones that were awfully paid and awful people. You learn the questions to ask. You learn that it is important to not be a complete dick in the industry. Because a lot of those people that I worked with in my year one who were awful are no longer working in the industry, or are people that when their name comes up, people tell me how awful they are, you know? And that's the thing, it's a very small community. You kind of trial and error and find your crowd, and you find the people who are gonna be there. And so yeah, it's a roller coaster, but it's really fun. And I learned so much about who I was and how much I could tolerate, what I expect from the community I'm in and the shows that I'm a part of. And as an artist, where my lines are in terms of like what I will work on, what I won't work on, what I think is acceptable and not. And it's not always the same for everybody, which means that there's usually always work for somebody out here. And it's been an interesting growing process, especially that first year. In the first few years of like me costume designing, there's been definitely moments where I've felt like, am I doing the right thing? Is this where I should be? Is this where I want to be? And for the most part, it's felt very good. I feel like I've been pretty successful, but there's definitely been moments where I have not. And I very much vividly remember a shoot where it was kind of my first really big, not big shoot, but there was a large number of cast, but it was like some bigger names on it. And for the most part, everyone was super lovely, but there was one actress who she was just very difficult. And there were things that she not only lied about our conversations, but she would embellish about me doing my job. The fortunate thing is that I had a costumer on that show also who was there for all those conversations. So that was something I learned, was always have someone in the room with you when you're talking to people. But I remember coming home from some of those things where she started talking to the producer, telling them that I wasn't doing my job. The producer came at me and was very, was siding with the actress until I brought in my costumer to be like, no, this is not how that conversation went. But it made me just question, like, there's people in this industry who are going to try to tear you down to further themselves because they have some shortcoming of some kind or some insecurity of some kind. And so it makes them feel better, or it's just how they deal with their anger, whatever it is. I'm not used to that. That's not how I operate. So it was a shock to realize that personality does in fact exist. I've gone out of my way to try to not have that in my life, but you can't avoid it in any work. So yeah, there's definitely a time when I came home and I just like cried and I was like, oh my God, I'm terrible. Like I'm an awful designer. Like I don't know how to deal with this. But once I kind of got over that hump, it was like, do I enjoy this job? Yeah, I love this job. Do I feel fulfilled when I'm doing this and things are going well and I feel that I'm like on my game? Yes. If I wasn't getting paid for some of these jobs, would I still do this? Yeah, I'd still do this. I love what I do. It is fun and creative and it's hands-on and it is something where when you hit that moment, it's like, it's magic. That's where that magic is. Like you create that in your creative process with your collaboration. And I just realized like, this is what I want to do. And yes, there are other things in this world that interest me and that I could do, but I've been building towards this and I'm not going to let one person or two people or 100 people tell me that that's not what I can do. Only I get to tell me what I can't do. And so I was just like channeled my dad and my mom and my whole family and my community, and I have people who believe in me. That was when I was like, oh, okay, like you're not gonna please everybody and that's okay. And you're gonna make mistakes and that's okay. It's about how you come back from them and what you learn and can you take those lessons and make you better at your craft. And I think that that's what I try to do now. I'm costume designing. I have a couple features on the docket for this year. It's really cool because this craft has also granted me the ability to travel and see different places, which is a huge interest of mine. So just on that note, it's fantastic. There's still the ups and downs, there's still the last minute things, there's still negotiating money, all those things, but I've learned how to navigate that and not to get scared if things seem a little slow, that work always comes around. Just figure out how you fill in those gaps. So now I'm just pushing and I'm gonna be joining the guild and it's coming along and it's my journey, and as crappy as it has been sometimes, it's also been amazing, and there's no other way that I would have rather gone about this, I think is what my realization for today is, that it's my journey and I will get to where I want to get to. I just have to keep pushing.
That's great. Perfect. Perfect.